Hey y'all, there's a few points I want to hit about Jesus praying in the garden, and I'm going to keep this brief, but a few things that we may overlook a few too many times, and that's why I want to go over it quickly. And that is that whenever he was in the garden praying, we don't stop and look at the mental pain that he was in, because his mental pain actually caused him to start bleeding through his sweat, from popped blood vessels. And it's actually real. It's a clinical term called hematohidrosis. So it's actually very possible. And we have to examine there, how much pressure he must have been under to have actually ruptured blood vessels. And if you can even stop and think for a moment, when we go through our own trials and our own struggles, we're praying to God saying, "Oh, Lord, I need your help. I don't know what to do here." We can't, if we're praying about someone else, we can't control that other person's actions, so we're praying for God to help. Well, in Jesus' situation, he knew that if he wanted to be reunited with us for eternity, then it had to be done. Because we can only get to God the Father through Jesus Christ. But on the flip side, Jesus is also God. And so if he'd have wanted to, he could have at any given time just said, I don't want to do this. I'm just going to go back to heaven. But he knew that if he didn't, we wouldn't be, brought back to God the Father. We wouldn't have been able to spend eternity with him one day, which is why he went ahead and went through with it. And I think we have to look at that. We usually bypass the garden to, okay, well, he was beat and then he was put on the cross, and that had to be really, really painful. And over the next few parts that I'm going to be doing, we're going to be looking at that kind of stuff a little bit closer, exactly how badly he was beaten. Because all of these things, he did it out of love. It's not that he didn't have the power to take himself back up and say it's not worth it. But he did say that it's worth it, which is why he went through it. And also another point that I want to make with him praying in the garden is that knowing what he was about to endure, the beating and being put on the cross, he still took time to also pray for his disciples and for future believers. If you read in John chapter 17, and it starts talking about future believers in verse 20. And that's really significant to me, because that shows how much love that he has for us, to even be praying for us after what he's about to have to go through. And I have some scriptures up here for you on my slideshow. And if you want to, look at some of the verses that I have up, you can look at those and do a little bit more in-depth study, because it tells us in Mark 14, chapter 33, and Matthew chapter 26, verse 37, that he was deeply distressed. And so I just kind of wanted to go over that really quickly about the mental state that he was in, and going forward, the mental state that he was going to be in on top of having it done, having the physical pain to go along with it. And I don't think the mental pain was just from knowing the pain that was about to come, but also because of knowing that he was going to be taking on all the sins of the entire world. I mean, could you imagine that? I mean, sometimes it's all I can do to keep up with my own. I'm not trying to say that I'm, a bad person, but we all know that God's status is not about good or bad. It's about if you've accepted Jesus Christ to cover those sins. And so, taking on all the sins of the world, to me, is a phenomenal thing. And only Jesus could have done that. And so I encourage you to look up these other verses to, cross-examine. Also look at Luke chapter 22, verse 44. And, read about his anguish and his distress for yourselves. And I just want to leave y'all with that, and I'll talk to y'all in part 2.